You're all set.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending our June Policy Committee meeting. We have six items on the agenda, and we're going to start with 1.01. I'm going to ask Ms. Peterson to bring us up to speed on 1.01.
So item 1.1 is a resolution to amend the current grading policy for students in grades 6 through 12. We reviewed the policy after our current AP exam session, and we feel that there are some concerns that were brought by the data team. I also have Mr. Place that has some of the data behind what our concerns are. We wanted also an opportunity, the last the adoption of this policy was in August, to fix some other grammatical errors that we see. What we found after our first administration of the AP exams is the purpose of this policy when it came out of grading committee was to increase the number of students that actually sat for the AP exam. We also wanted to remove barriers for students that were not taking due to costs. There was a huge initiative that was given to our students and families to sit for the exam, that the district would be covering the cost of the exam, and we did see an increase from over 270 exams given the prior year to over 700. However, when we look at the calculations, that's still half of the population of AP students, and it will result in touching or manually changing, and I know Mr. Place has the actual numbers. He did the data analysis of the students who actually sat for the exam. It would require a lot of manual changes in the system, and if Mr. Place wants to review some of that.
Place.
So when we looked at implementing this, there would be 60 rosters or 60 sections at the 3 campuses of the high school that we would need to look at. And we've identified that 607 exams were taken out of 1,114 students that were enrolled in those associated courses. We would then have 507 student course grades that will need to be rescaled for each marking period. So quarter 1 through quarter 4. Once we have final grades in and we do the final grade calculations, we would then have to rescore or rescale all the scores that have been posted to the transcripts. And then because we would want to be able to audit that in the future to find out and make sure that we didn't make any errors, we would also have to make a note on every single transcript change. So in total, we're looking at approximately 3,000 data points or data fields that would need to be updated. And because it can't be automated, we'd be looking at around 60 to 80 man hours to complete that work. And our greatest concern is that by making manual changes, we are possibly inserting error into the student information system. And each error impacts transcripts, GPA calculations, and final ranks. And it doesn't just affect one student when you do rank, it affects everybody within the ranking system. So we want to make sure that we were bringing that to policy committee to either suspend that or to delete it entirely going forward. That portion that would change going from a 105 weighting to a 103 weighting because of the amount of manual entries that would have to occur in order to fix that error.
I just would also like the board to know that we are honoring some of the recommendations that did come out of the grading committee. One of the main concerns was to have differentiation between honors, advanced placement, and college level courses, and we still would be able to facilitate that this year. The honors weighting would be 103, the advanced placement and college course placement would be 105, and our Regents classes would not be weighted. So some of the recommendations would be able to be adhered to within the policy. We're just really wanting to make sure that before we implement the differentiation of sitting and not sitting, that we have a solid plan. We also need to look at the master's scheduling to ensure that our advanced placement and early college are not commingled, and what does that actually, what would that result in, and would that limit course offerings for students? So there's some further examinations that we feel need to be done from curriculum instruction before we implement.
Okay, board members, any comments or questions in regards to 1.01? Madam President.
So I'm a little confused right now. What's going to happen this year? And then what are you recommending?
So what would happen this year is that honors courses would be weighted at 103. All AP classes and college level would be 105, regardless of whether the student sat or did not sit.
And that's what you're recommending for the future also?
Yes, we would like an opportunity to see if we can execute the recommendation with fidelity and data accuracy in the future, but we really need to explore that with the master schedulers of the building and our student information system more in depth.
Okay. So how can we help to promote students to take the exam? Because I think that was the goal of the committee when they requested that part of the policy to be put in writing. So how do we help the kids to take the exam and then be better prepared for the exam and then get the 5 that they need to get the college credits?
You know, I was a little I really hope that our students would sit for the AP exam. It gives them a great opportunity to earn college credit. I think it's the knowledge base and just also spreading that with our teachers as well to encourage that this is a free opportunity for students to be able to earn college credit. I also think we have to look at our master scheduling to ensure that we don't have commingled, because what's happening is because of the way that our program is designed, we have students that are in the course that are AP, we have students in the course that are college level, and then there's not, that would be a data accuracy thing, just making sure, okay, did the student pay and obtain the college credit? Did the student pay and sit for the exam? So we want to take the manual out of it. I think promotion with the parents, whether that is during open house or a special communication to students that are in AP, to get some family engagement in there so that they understand that this is an opportunity that the district will provide free of cost to increase those numbers. I'm hoping that we're able to retain the same level of students taking tests. I mean, this year was a great year. We had over 700 students, sit for exam. 700 exams administered. So that's a great increase than what we've had in the past, and we need to keep that momentum. So I definitely feel that the efforts need to be duplicated and expanded next year.
Madam President.
So you said something that kind of jogged my mind, because when I was a director, we tried to, you have to have a certain number in order to run a class. Mm-hmm. So in separating them out, in charting your course, is that going to hurt kids' chances to take AP or college level? In other words, will the enrollment be so low that we can't run both sets of classes?
That's what another fear that I have, especially for those AP courses that are like psychology, AP art, they're right on the cusp. So I don't want to mess with the programmatic offerings that we're offering our students. So it's a larger, deep conversation with curriculum and instruction and the master schedules to ensure that we keep the same level of AP offerings for our students, but then the opportunity for them to take a rigorous course load. We need to really kind of research that a little bit more. But I'm happy to say that we can keep one goal that came out of committee, which is differentiating the weighting of an honors versus an AP and a college level. So that's a good step in the right direction this year.
Thank you.
Ms. Maida, any questions or comments?
I just had a question. Because we are pairing up with a lot more colleges now, the complexity is going to get a little more in depth. So, go ahead.
And I definitely agree. I know at Curriculum Committee yesterday, we are onboarding super courses. We also have collaborations with a couple other community colleges. So those are other wonderful obtainable opportunities for students to get the 1.05 weight. We took one step this year, which is a great first step. We need to see how we maintain the amount of exams that we have administered and really look to see if this is going to mess up program offerings in the future.
Madam President.
And are we keeping track of gender and race in some of these courses and classes to make sure that we're targeting some of the kids that need to be targeted to move into accelerated classes?
Yes, so AP, actually, College Board and the AP program in general does a wonderful job. We have our own internal data, but they also provide us with equity reports, and based on our students that are administered the PSATs, they also give us a report recommending what AP courses should be offered in our district based on the scores that we're seeing from students in PSAT. So that's a part of the College Board program that the district is involved in, and we do meet and get recommendations for the next steps forward.
So, a couple questions, Ms. Peterson. So, I know we had this conversation, I believe, last year and the year before in regards to AP honors courses and how early we would start exposing parents and families to what the offerings could be and what the impact of taking honors courses and advanced placement courses once they get to the high school. Have we started doing that at the middle schools yet?
So I know the school counselors on the middle school, as a part of their preparation for the transition to the high school, talk about those offerings. We do also have the talent development programs at the middle level to expose students and parents to more difficult course offerings. I do think that as we expand our exploratory, I know that CTE was also trying to do things to talk about career options. It's a part of our guidance plan that we have to have students look at different academic options. I do think the AP exploratory program needs to be pushed down a little bit so students realize that their academics and their skills built in middle school will help them in high school. So that's things that we need to explore in the future.
Because I think it's so important that parents understand the importance of what AP and honors courses can do to children and expose them to a curriculum that will get them ready for the post-high school careers. And one more question would be, the recommendations coming before the board on Tuesday that you're talking about today in regards to 5502, does that impact any of the final standings for this year? Let's say the top 5, top 10?
So no, we are specifically coming forward with this recommendation for change so that we don't get into a situation where we have discrepancies or possible inaccuracies. By taking this component out, we're very clear that honors courses are at 103 and AP and college courses are at 105 with no differentiation between that. It can be audited, it can be looked at, and we can guarantee that we have accuracy on that.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Ms. Maida, Madam President. Ms. Maida?
Do you want to go? No, so the 103 and the 105, that's the way it is right now. And you're suggesting we keep everything the same until we get through all of this,
So everything has been established at 103, 105. If we implement it as written right now, we would have to then reduce anybody who didn't have a sitting at an exam, and that's where the inaccuracy would come into play. Right now, it's clean.
Okay.
All the courses have been set up and double-checked in terms of weighting, and we did that prior to ranking, and we're confident that we have our rankings correct. If we go and had to change this now, that would then interrupt thousands of grades.
Right, that's why I was just trying to clarify in my own mind. And one other thing, we talked about like going down further to 7th grade, 6th grade, to give the parents more information. Because now we have the 8th grade geography, AP geography, and this is the first year for that. So that makes a lot of sense to even maybe as close to when they just come to middle school. Does that make sense?
So that is something that CNI is looking into in the revision of the talent development document, especially as those pathways were created in the humanities. With the human geography course, it was a great success this year. There were a lot of students that enjoyed it. The teachers enjoyed the curriculum. So then how do we then build that program and make sure that our middle level students are prepared for that? So I know that that's something CNI is exploring with the revision of the new talent development document.
So, and the last thing I want to say, at the end of the day, I would just love to see those honors courses and AP courses more diversified at the high school. I think it's important, and I think that as a district, we should try to encourage all students to try to take advantage of these courses and the opportunities. It just, from the numbers and what I see now, it's not as diverse as it should be. So I'm hoping that we can find other ways and other pathways to get students to see the importance of AP and honors courses and take advantage of them so that those classes can be as diverse as our district looks going forward. Thank you. Madam, Mrs. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Just to add to what you were saying, I don't know how that works as far as do honors teachers get together and talk about like innovative things. So if we are talking about possibly changing, getting more diversity, which is certainly what we want to do, maybe we can talk about methods and ways of pulling other students in because everyone has different learning styles. So, sure.
That's a
Thank
great idea, Ms. Maida. That's for reading, 5502 for Tuesday, and adoption?
And adoption, yes.
Yes, thank you. 1.02, Ms. Peterson?
So item 1.02 is 5695, the use of cell phones and other electronic devices. I just wanted to convey to the board that this was a long process, I think even till the last moment. Mr. Place and I yesterday were reviewing this, and Mr. Boncano, I'm really kind of trying to make sure that we get it right. Just so the board knows the process that we went through, this is a policy that went through policy review. There was a review of our current documents, discussion with teachers, administrators, and the policy review shared decision-making team. We then had a separate review and analysis and conversation with all of our administrators. We had another review with cabinet and then another review. So we've been reviewing this policy, really trying to make sure we actually combined 5695 and 5696 to one policy. We felt that the two policies were not in alignment, and we needed to make sure that it was simplified for our building level administration and our students and our families. So this is a complete new policy. The first thing that we wanted to delineate when we're talking about electronic devices, there's cell phones, and then there's electronic devices. We do have a district one-to-one initiative that we wanted to make sure that we honored and let students and teachers know that we want them to use them for instruction. But cell phones is where the concern is. We know that cell phones are at times are important for the health and safety of students. However, they can provide an instructional problem if students are using them inappropriately. So students are permitted to bring cell phones to school. However, once they enter the school board, we're asking that cell phones be turned off and kept out of sight during the instructional day. So other electronic devices we would like for you to use during the instruction at the discretion of the educator and in a way that is in alignment with our acceptable use policy. They cannot be used during emergency drills or photographing or videotaping, which was in our previous policy. And then we go into the loss of privileges. And the expectations, we really would like to refer back to our code of conduct that is updated yearly. We would like for students that are in violation of this policy to have a progressive discipline when it comes to cell phone usage in the buildings. We also want to be respectful of the confiscation of the device and when parents would be able to get those returned or when students would be able to get them returned, and whether that privilege for them to bring a device into the building can be revoked if they are not following the expectation of the building leader and the teacher. The enforcement and the responsibility of this policy is for all staff members of the district. We expect that if a student is asked that they will be reviewed this policy on the first attempt, that they will have a conversation and they'll review the policy. On the second attempt, there will be a conversation with the student and parent, a review of the policy, and parents will be notified and talk about the appropriate use of the cell phone. On the third event, the device will be confiscated and secured in the main office until the end of the school day. Their students' privilege to possess the electronic device on school grounds will be suspended or revoked, and the student is then subjected to any discipline in accordance with the code of conduct.
Board members, any questions, comments? Madam President, Ms. Mayo.
I have
Ms.
two
Maneo.
main ones. I know that one of the problems in not just our schools, but in schools across the country is videotaping of fights and things like that, altercations.
Big time.
Is there any way that we can be fairly specific about that maybe in the regulation?
So that, there is a specific thing that expressly prohibits the use of electronic devices to photograph or videotape without prior permission from school staff.
I see that, but I'm looking for something specific right now about fights, because what's happening is it's exploding. Like 2 students would be fighting and 40 students will be there videotaping, and it becomes not only an in-school problem, but an out-of-school problem. So I was hoping that we could, in the regulation, perhaps we can be really specific about videotaping, not in the policy, but in the regulation, so that the students know that this is not a good thing to do.
But we're hoping that by defining cell phones and other personal devices separately, we went back and forth on this lots of times, because when the policy was originally written, and this is for all school districts a decade ago or so, or even maybe 2, that we were looking at things like pagers and beepers and all those sort of things, and those have sort of all gone away. And now we're dealing almost exclusively with cell phones. And so cell phones, we wanted to be clear that once you enter the school building, the device is off and put away. So that should address, under the majority of the policy, that if a student violates and has out their cell phone, they are in violation of the policy. And the third time that they do that, they will not be allowed to bring their device onto school property from that point forward, or through a suspension of time. So that, other than, I don't think I've seen a student with anything other than a phone in probably the last decade, that if we say you can't use your cell phone or have it out, that takes care of the videotaping, because they can't have it on during the day. So hopefully that addresses that, both through policy and through regulation for that.
Hold on 1 second. Margot has her hand up.
Okay.
Margot?
I wanted to, Mark can finish up. My comment had to do with videotaping or photographing in a place where you expect privacy, like in a restroom. And there was an incident today, and in my mind, there should be no first, second, or third offense, and that should immediately be a revocation of privilege.
So what my question is, and I think that this is something, it is a part, I did not bring the regulation, it is a part of the regulation. The reason why we wanted to refer back to the code of conduct for the disciplinary consequences was because of the nature of how things are changing with electronic devices. So we wanted to refer back to that to have the infraction. So if a student is caught videotaping a fight in the hallway, doing something inappropriate in a bathroom with a phone or recording, that they are subject to the discipline as per the code of conduct. So that's where we were thinking that those things would be addressed in the adjustment of the code of conduct this year and in the regulation and enforcement.
But I understand what Ms. May is saying, in as much as there maybe that shouldn't be counted as a first offense. Get
That's
it?
my point.
Because there is a more egregious level of wrongdoing in videotaping in a bathroom than just having your phone out for a first offense. Get it? And although it may be the child or the student's first offense in having their phone out, but I think perhaps there should be some flexibility for the administrator to say, well, because this is a little bit more dangerous and a little bit more inappropriate, that this shouldn't be a first level offense.
perhaps we could, I'm sorry for interrupting, but perhaps we could go and say egregious misuse of, and state, for example, things such as use in inappropriate locations and or the videotaping of fights, then
Yes.
then we would might not necessarily follow
I think that's a good
the
idea.
offense. So we can come up some wording on
Right.
that.
Ms. May
That
is
was
nodding up
That's
there,
my
too.
opinion. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Ms.
My
Maida?
second thing is, you want to go first, Ms. Maida?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Go ahead.
My second thing is, the old 5695 addressed adults in the building.
Yes. And we did actually come up, we saw that, it's because it is a employee policy and a student policy. So Mr. Place and I researched that. When this policy was originally written, there was a recode. So this policy was 8,000. That is a staff policy. So it is embedded in our staff policies as well. We can double check that to make sure and provide what policy it is in the weekly. But we said, oh, this is a student policy and there's an employee regulation in the staff policy and that needs to be realigned. So I can provide that in the weekly, that employee section.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Maida?
I think you answered my question. I was just thinking of of what you were saying, Ms. Mineo. It's a violation of privacy and those egregious kind of ideas. So we have to be, I think that has to be definitely a firm consideration.
So I want to bring something to the table, and it may sound, I'm not going to say juvenile, but it may sound small, but I think what we need to do, I'm going to suggest that at the beginning of the year, we go back old school assemblies in each building. And even if we wanted to use the drama department or our kids, we should make videos of what's accepted and what's not accepted and film that behavior and show them when it's done, no, that's a no, or that's your first time. I mean, our kids are more visual than audio. And I think that if we do assemblies in each building at the beginning of the school year, and we do the videos over the summer with some of the kids, maybe from the drama department, we can pick some of the kids in the district, and they can act out that behavior that's not acceptable. So they get a visual of what they can and cannot do, how they can have in their phone in their pocket. If it's ringing, then that's a no. I mean, we can make it, something that they can visually see, and we do it in every building. So nobody can say that they don't know, they didn't understand, and at those assemblies, have a Q&A if anybody doesn't understand what we're modeling. But I think it's so important that everyone gets to understand these policies and also that it's conveyed to the parents. Madam President?
I like your idea, Mr. Howard. I think it's a good idea. But I would take it a step forward. I would videotape the entire thing. And for all new entrants, when they come in and sit with a guidance counselor, maybe they sit and watch this for half an hour so that people can't say, well, I didn't see it because I came in October.
I agree.
It actually is a part of the regulation that this is reviewed. And there was a couple of things in the regulation that I really wanted to talk out and to make sure. That's why I did not bring the regulation, but this is a part of what you're saying is already in the regulation. So when that comes back, I can add these requirements there
Ms.
for
Maida?
administration.
I was just going to say orientation, too. The kids come in early.
Absolutely.
A lot of them. So even if they see it at orientation and then again at the assembly, it's not, at least they can't say, we didn't know.
Yes,
So
because
that-
this has
yeah,
become
all of those reasons.
this has become a major issue, and I don't think anything that we can do would be too small. We have to get a grip on this problem, and I think that assembly idea, which every student must, and when they attend the assembly, they have to sign off that they were there that day. Madam President?
In the olden days, we used to do it in social studies class. We used to go over the code of conduct, and each student used to sign the code of conduct and hand it in, and it was done almost as a civic lesson. The reason they chose social studies, number one, civics, but number two, almost every student takes a social studies class. that's a small group, and perhaps those videos could be prepared for that, if that's a way, if a smaller group might be more advantageous to some schools.
Yes, sir. 03, Ms. Peterson?
1.03 is a resolution to remove 5696. I had a complete brain freeze there. So we are combining 5696 to 5695, so there's no need for this policy.
Okay. 1.04.
1.04 is a request around authorized signature. I have Ms. Kimberly Roaring here from our finance. I can get your title right, Mrs. Roaring. The Assistant Superintendent for Finance to speak about authorized signatures.
Thank you. Ms. Roaring?
Thank you. The request here is to just add an authorized signature of an acting purchasing agent so that we have somebody formally designated who can sign off on purchase orders or other things that might be required in the absence of our purchasing agent, who does from time to time enjoy her vacation, and allow things to continue timely.
Okay. Any questions, board members, comments? Okay. Thank you. 1.05, Mrs. Peterson?
So this one is also Mrs. Roaring.
Okay, she's on.
Thank you. 6800 is really looking to add a designee and after Assistant Superintendent for Finance in terms of the payroll audit that is most often executed by the district treasurer. So we just want to make sure that the policy aligns with our practices.
Okay. Madam President, Ms. Maida, questions, comments? Thank you. 1.06, Ms. Peterson.
Also Ms. Roaring.
Okay.
There are two items here, so I'll speak to the first one, which is the adjustments in the purchasing regulation. Really, this is just a cleanup of language to make sure it's clear and decipherable in terms of what we're talking about. So we have used purchases and contracts kind of commingled, and we wanted to call that out to be purchases or contracts, so that everybody knows what the limits are around that and the procedures associated with them. It also does include an acting purchasing agent as well, because there's language in here that speaks to the purchasing agent being the authorized individual.
Okay, Madam President, Ms. Ms. Maida, any comments or questions? I just get so twisted with these two names. Okay, 6830R.
So the last regulation that we have a proposed change in is around expense reimbursement. And it is to add very specific language in terms of timeliness of submission of mileage reimbursement. We're finding that very challenging. People are submitting it 6 and 8 months after the mileage has been driven, and really just codifying in a meaningful way what that expectation is. So if you conclude your month of September and you have mileage reimbursement, we expect that to go to your supervisor by the end of October and to the purchasing agent no later than the end of November, so we can really improve the timeliness of the turnaround. There's a little bit of a different caveat for May and June because, as you know, we close out the fiscal year in July, so we want to make sure we get all of those in by July 15th and we can process them in the year in which the expense should be incurred and not carry that into the new year. Thank you.
End of this meeting. I want to thank everybody for being a part of the June Policy Committee meeting, and we'll see everybody in July. If I'm the chair.